Setsuna started the battle, raising her eyes into the sky to get a better look at the enemies, while Jizo jumped out in front, softening the ground, causing all but the Griffin-S to sink down into it. We got 30 wolves, 13 bears, 10 boars, 20 little dinosaur things, 18 bird things, 20 tigers, and 5 big snakes, Setsuna reported as quickly as she could. Meanwhile, the Grimm were struggling with the softened ground. The Beowulfs, Creeps, Sabers, and Ursa were all effectively immobile, but the Griffin-S just flew right at them, and the Borbotusks were able to curl into a ball and slowly roll through it, and the King Tygitus could swim through it. Jizo, when I say so, harden the ground. We can't afford to stay in one area. Kendo told him. Got it. Jizo nodded. Meanwhile, Pony and Rin kept firing at the griffins, keeping them away from the group. Pony, Rin, keep the skies clear. Tetsu, protect them. Kendo ordered. Kamakiri, Monoma, take the snakes down. Shishida, Ibra take on the wolves. Sen, Aways, defeat the bears. Bondo, slow down the dinosaur things and the tigers, and me and Yanagi will take care of them. Everyone else, support the others. Jizo now. Jizo touched the ground, causing it to become solid, and trapping all the Grimm that had been stuck in the ground were now encased in it, immobile at least for the time. However, some were able to break through, those being the Borbotusk, Katis, Ursa, and Creeps, while the Beowulfs and Sabers were still struggling to get out. Rah! Shishida charged forward as a beast, and grabbed a Beowulf out of the ground by its head, and crushed its skull, before pulling up another one like a carrot, and smashing it into another Beowulf. Borbotusk rolled at them at high speed, and Bondo jumped out in front and sprayed glue at them, causing them to get stuck to the ground. While the Borbotusk struggled to get out of the glue, Monoma and Kamakiri jumped over them and charged at the 5KTS. One of the snakeheads lunged at Kamakiri, but the hero student just barely managed to jump over the attack, before flipping in the air and forming a blade on the back of his arm, to stab it in the head. Rah! The KT roared out in pain as the head that got stabbed flailed about, while Kamakiri hung on with his blade, digging it deeper into the Grimm. The other head lunged at Kamakiri, headbutting him so hard he flew off its first head. Kamakiri hit the ground, making a blade come out of his back that stabbed into the ground, to keep himself from rolling too far. Meanwhile, Monoma ducked under one other KT snakehead lunge and formed a blade to slit its throat. The head reeled back and flailed about, while the other head took its turn to lunge at him. Monoma rushed to the side, and as the snake rushed past him, Monoma stuck his blade in its side, and slid it all down its right side. Rah! The Grimm snake gave a weak roar, as it fell to the ground, and died. Meanwhile, back with the rest of the class, Bondo continued to glue the rest of the Borbotusk, while Yui went in and touched them with her quirk, turning them all into tiny boars. Yanagi activated her quirk, picking up all the miniaturized boars and bringing them together on the ground, and holding them down. Kendo then enlarged her fist, and slammed it down on the boars, killing them all. Meanwhile, Pony and Rin had taken down 9 out of the 18 griffins, but the rest were diving down towards them, getting a bit too close for comfort. One griffin went for Rin and was about to perform a diving claw swipe on him, when Tetsu got in front of him, and took the hit, doing no damage to his steely body. Tetsu grabbed the griffin's leg, and pulled it down, allowing Rin to get a perfect shot at its chest, killing it. Setsuna separated her hand from her body and carried a ways over to the Ursa where Sin was dealing with them. Ducked under one of the Ursa's claw swipe, and then thrust his hand forward into the Ursa's chest, drilling into its body with his drill bit fingers, until his hand came out the other end, and the Ursa died, fading away into black smoke. 2 more Ursas charged at him, while close together, and he knew exactly what to do. He dashed forward and kicked one of the Ursa's head into the other so that they were touching. At that moment, Setsuna lowered a ways onto the 2 of them, and he fused their skulls together. Ara! Both Ursas roared, as they tried to move around to attack, but kept tripping up as they couldn't move effectively while used. Meanwhile, Ibra used her vines to pick up some Beowulfs and hold them in the air, binding them so Shishida could tear them apart. Back with Kamakiri, a KT had wrapped around him and was now attempting to crush him, but that was a mistake, and Kamakiri made blades come out of all parts of his body, that stabbed into the KT, killing them. Meanwhile, the Sabers had finally escaped from the ground and started charging at Kendo at top speed. Yanagi activated her quirk, and held up the Sabers in the air, albeit barely, as they were approaching the limit of what her quirk could lift. Manga then came in and used his own quirk. Kaboom! The onomatopoeia for kaboom came out and floated towards the 5 sabers and exploded when it reached them. But that was just the first wave, as while the 5 died, 7 more charged at them. Komori jumped out and spritzed the area with water before jumping back. The sabers lunged at the students, but Kendo came in and slapped them aside. All 7 of the sabers got knocked on their side, but quickly got up and were ready to retaliate. But they never got the chance, as suddenly, mushrooms started growing all around their bodies, including on their eyes and in their throats, causing them to swipe blindly as they suffocated. XXXXXXXXXXXX. It seems like they don't have too many issues with large groups, Izuka noted. He had already started writing whole notebooks worth of notes about both the security and the students. They have very interesting quirks. Indeed. I'm quite happy they've lasted this long without losing a single member of their class. Misa said. Shall we see if they handle the level 3 Grim? Not yet, Izuka said. I want to see how they handle the Hound. Ah yes. That will be quite interesting indeed. Misa chuckled, eager to see more from his students. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Every member of Class 1B was completely and utterly exhausted. They finally defeated every Grim that had come at them and had regrouped in the center of the clearing. Ha! Told you we should have just killed all of them. Kamakiri gloated. You're assuming that was all of them. Kendo pointed out. They better be. Setsuna groaned. Because if we have to fight more of these then ga. Suddenly Setsuna was picked up by her neck and slammed into the ground by an invisible force. Slam! 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 After getting slammed in the ground a few times, Setsuna was tossed at the rocky cliff so hard the rock cracked, and Setsuna instantly passed out. What the hell? Manga shouted out in shock, as everyone got ready to fight again, but none of them really knew where this enemy was. After a few moments, suddenly Yui felt something grab her by the back of the head and lift it up, before being slammed down, face first into the ground. Slam! 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 Much like Setsuna, Yui was slammed into the ground hard enough to crater it, knocking her unconscious. Damn it, can someone make it visible? Kendo asked. Komori charged forward and started spraying the area. She was then picked up by her face by this invisible force. However, she at least was able to activate her quirk in time. The invisible opponent was then covered in mushrooms, including in their throat, making it rather hard to breathe. It was then the Hound immediately became visible, in its upright form, and threw Komori away, as it struggled to breathe. What is that thing? Kamakiri asked. I don't know, but at least Komori killed it, Manga said. However, that was far from true. Suddenly, the Hound's chest started glowing orange, before a stream of fire came out of its mouth, destroying all the mushrooms and clearing its throat. You guys need to stop jinxing things, Awaze told them. Komori, get away. Tetsu ran towards the mushroom girl, as she was now far too close to the Hound, and completely defenseless. Unfortunately, he was too late, as the Hound turned its attention to the small girl, and opened his flaming maw. Whoosh! The Hound shot out fire at Komori, which engulfed her completely. Ah! Komori screamed as she was set alight. Rah! Leave her alone. Tetsu ran in, and punched the Hound in the face, not doing much damage, but pushing the stream of fire away from Komori. Meanwhile, Pony used her horns to pick up Setsuna, Yui, and Komori, bringing them to the rest of the class. 1B looked at their fallen classmates in horror, as they were all very injured, and completely unconscious. Their injuries aren't life-threatening, but they're still pretty bad, Kendo said, after looking at them for a bit. Grr! I'm gonna kill that thing, Kamakiri said as it ran towards the Hound, with blades coming out of his body. Kamakiri, wait. Kendo told him, but she was ignored. Meanwhile, Tetsu punched the Hound in the chest, and his steel fist just sunk into it, not seeming to do much damage. The Hound jumped back, and got back on all fours, before letting out a stream of fire from its mouth at Tetsu. Gah! Tetsu grit his metal teeth, as he endured the flames. He'd been working on his heat resistance, so he could at least handle this much, although it did hurt a bit. The Hound saw that its attack wasn't working, and so it stopped and took a second to think and analyze its opponent. It didn't get much time to do that though, as Kamakiri jumped in and delivered an attack from above with a blade coming out of his forearm. Die! Kamakiri shouted, dove down at the Grim. However, the Hound simply caught his blade in its mouth. Kamakiri's eyes widened, as he saw the Hound's mouth glow, and he realized he'd made a mistake. Whoosh! Ack! Kamakiri shouted in pain as he took a flamethrower to the face. He tried to retract his blade, but the hound bit down tight on it, making sure the hero student was stuck there. Tetsu ran forward and punched the hound in its armored face, but the hound didn't loosen its grip. The steely student tried to pry its jaw open, but that was ineffective. Tetsu, get out of the way! Jizo shouted as he ran forward before touching the ground and activating his quirk. The ground softened under the hound, causing it to suddenly sink in and lose its balance a bit, and its jaw loosened its grip for just a second, but that was enough for Tetsu to jump in and pull his classmate out. Kamakiri was not in good shape, his face was burned a lot, and he was completely unconscious. Crap! Tetsu swore as he carried his classmate over towards the rest of the group. That thing is on a whole other level from the things we fought, Sun pointed out. Well, at least now it's stuck, Kozai said. Dude, don't jinx it. Away scolded. What? It's stuck. Look at it. Kozai pointed at the hound, who was struggling to move in the mud-like ground. What's it gonna do, fly out? It was then that the hound grew wings, and flew out of the mud. The class looked at it in shock, before Aways glared at Kozai. I think it's adapting. Kendo pierced together. The more we fight it, the more it changes itself to counter us. The hound then flew towards them and let out another stream of flames. The class dodged in separate directions as the flames came down, splitting the class in two. Pony and Rin shot it with their quirks, but the scales simply were absorbed into its body, doing no damage, and the horns didn't do much more than that. The hound turned its attention to the fallen classmates, who Pony had put down so she could focus on shooting it. It breathed another stream of flames around those students, causing the rest of their classmates around them to flee. The hound then grew another set of arms and dived at the fallen students, grabbing all of them in its arms, before going back up into the sky and flying away. No! Kendo shouted out, as most of the class was helpless to do anything here. Pony shot out 4 horns, hoping that she could snag her classmates from the beast's arms. But when the horns got close, the hound's head turned around and shot fire at them, destroying the horns and allowing it to get away with the students. TCH. Damn it. Kawaro said. Well, what's gonna happen to them? Bondo asked, fearful for his classmates. Well, this is an exercise thought up by U.A, so they're probably fine, Kendo said, calming down her classmates. They just failed the exercise. Well, that's a relief, Ibra said. Still, to think we'd have to face such a fearsome beast. It's like Monoma, but it doesn't have to touch people. And it doesn't talk. Kozai said. So in other words, it's better Monoma. Monoma gave him an irritated look. Why, you little dash? We need to prepare, Kendo told her classmates. We just lost 4 classmates to one of those, imagine if there are more? We can't be caught off guard like this again. A change of approach is needed. This isn't a race to get to the middle, it's a fight for survival. XXXXXXXXX. The hound is more powerful than I'd thought, Izuka said. In the end, it took out 4 of them, although they were already tired. Ah yes, it is a particularly nasty creature, isn't it, Nisa said. The power of adaptation is a very powerful ability. Combined with its unique physiology, I can see why my students would have difficulties defeating it. That being said, do you plan to continue going easy on them? Izuku paused for a moment, before sighing. No, this is meant to be like a real break-in, alright. Switch to level 3 security.